Welcome to Managing Through Crisis, the weekly webcast featuring faculty from Harvard Business School sharing insights for managers on how to navigate through the COVID-19 crisis. A 2002 article in Harvard Business Review titled Crucibles of Leadership described experiences that tested business leaders, moments that forced them to question who they were and what truly mattered to them. Our guest today is Professor Bill George. He's the former chair and CEO of Medtronic, and someone who has thought, taught, and written volumes on leadership, including Crucible moments. Bill, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be here.
I know you've been out there very active on the circuit talking about how important leadership is in a time like this, and I think people are going to really enjoy hearing what you have to say about the current situation. Let me just ask you to sort of, in getting us started down this path, is this pandemic a crucible moment, and what makes it so?
It certainly is, and it certainly is the greatest crisis of my lifetime, far beyond 9/11 and what we experienced in the financial world in 2008. Probably only have to go all the way back to World War II and the Great Depression to get anything close to it. And so crisis is a real test for every leader, Brian. We find very different kind of leaders stepping up. And it does get to be a crucible for you personally, because I think you have to really search, who am I and what is my essence here? And what's my motivation and what's my calling? And that brings you right back to the core of what you're all about, your true north, if you will. And it's calling out the truly authentic leaders who are stepping up and making a huge difference, whereas many others are kind of fading away. So I think it gets right to that core. And if you've suffered a crucible early in your life, as I did as a teenager or a young man in my 20s, or many people have in mid-career when they lost their job or lost their family or something, you can go back to that and think about that and then go forward. And I think people that have that inner strength really make the difference.
So do leaders, like in a time like this, should leaders be like behaving differently, or should they be sort of steady as they go? I mean, maybe it differs depending on the situation, but I'm just wondering, how does a leader know if they're kind of, doing the right thing in a time like this?
A crisis for leaders is totally different than what we teach about managing. When you're managing in steady times, you delegate, you organize, you analyze, you plan, you have all kinds of time. We don't have any time. We don't have data. We don't have information. We're flying blind in many cases, and yet people have to act. They have to act to protect the safety of their employees and their customers. People are operating out of fear. They have to make very quick financial decisions. Many companies are going to go bankrupt as a result of this. So when you're managing in good times like this and a nice growth cycle, it's one thing. But in a time like this, you don't have time to do it. So I say what's really important, though, is you have to have a great clarity about your vision. Think of yourself like a sailor. You're going to that end point. Never lose that end point. Now, the storms are buffeting you, the winds are blowing every which way, rain is coming down, and so you have to have a lot of resilience. You're going to get knocked down, knocked back. But in addition to that, you're going to have to adapt quickly to those changing conditions. You can't just be on a fixed plan. You have to be willing to use your intuition and to adapt quickly. And so I think then you have to fall back on your beliefs, your principles, and your values to know what to do. And so an example is I talked to Alex Gorsky, the CEO of J&J, and he's got a small business in vaccines. They weren't even a major player. He's converting everything, trying to find a vaccine, spending billions of dollars to try to get there in a hurry, and trying to already ramp up manufacturing facilities to produce 1 billion doses next winter. So he's making that commitment. That comes out of the J&J credo. That comes out of beliefs that we have to take care of people. And so he's just putting his financials, well, not totally aside, but certainly not putting the emphasis on that. So I think the game changes dramatically now for people.
I love hearing about that example. We actually spoke with Rebecca Henderson last week, and we were talking about her views on, reimagining capitalism in a time like this in particular. Do you see other examples of leaders out there who have sort of found a way to, true to their core values of their firm, to add value in a time like this?
Well, absolutely. Omar Ishraq of Medtronic, my former company, he's got a small business, accounts about 1/100 of 1% of his revenues, based in Galway, Ireland, and produces ventilators. Well, and it came through an acquisition. All of a sudden, this becomes the major problem, the major shortfall. So what's he do? He gears up production, he doubles and he'll quadruple production, calling in workers from other facilities, making sure they're safe. But at the same time, he's taken a smaller end ventilator and he's now open sourced it. So he's providing it to General Motors, to Ford, to Tata Industries in India, to Foxconn operating in Wisconsin, so they can really gear up production. And he's called on Elon Musk personally, Tesla, to make a critical element, solenoid valve, so they can expand their production. So it's really interesting. He's got to secure his supply lines. He's happy to have the Defense Production Act helps him secure his supply lines. So yeah, he's an example of doing just that.
What do you think about sort of the kinds of leaders that are sort of front and center today? We've got leaders in government. We've got our president. We've got governors. We've got mayors who are like really center stage on this thing. We've got leaders in firms and organizations who have ways that they can contribute. How do you view those different kinds of leadership and the roles that those folks are playing, and what are your thoughts on how they can work together?
Well, they need to work together. But oftentimes there's not a plan, or it's too slow coming from the federal level. There's a tremendous amount of, actually very fast, from the Federal Reserve. The stimulus efforts coming out of Congress, very quick. So they're putting a lot of money out there, but that's not addressing a lot of the problem. We have huge supply chain problems with FEMA right now. Mike Roman over at 3M, FEMA took all of his masks. And so an organization like Mayo Clinic, the world's leading medical center, they can't even get masks right now. I talked to the CEO. We're fourth in line. John Rico Perugia said, we have to go stand behind the states, behind FEMA. We can't get direct ship from 3M. This is a huge problem for us. And so this is a very complex situation. I think in the absence of this, governors are stepping up and taking action. And you see governors like Governor Newsom out in California, and Governor Cuomo in New York, and Governor Baker in Massachusetts, Governor DeWine in Ohio, really stepping up and acting ahead of the federal government and putting things in place, and now deciding what's safe for their people, closing schools. And Larry Bacow at Harvard was, I think, the second school in the nation to close. He was way ahead of the game. Thank goodness he did. Other places, they held back and they didn't move quickly. So you've got to move fast. Now, I think the business leaders are doing a fantastic job leading from purpose and focusing on what's really important. The safety of their employees. I talked to a group of 12 large company CEOs this morning. They are working really hard to keep their employees, furlough them. Some of them have to, like Best Buy did. But many others are holding on everything they can to keep their employees. Almost all the CEOs I know are taking pay cuts, 40, 50%, 25, maybe in some cases. And they're asking salary employees to take pay cuts too, to try to keep their employee base. But the longer this goes on, the harder that'll be to do. We got to be realistic. They won't be able to do that indefinitely because they're going to face liquidity crunch. Now, yes, you can get loans out there, but you better get them quick because there's going to be a huge liquidity crunch coming for companies.
A lot of what we've talked about is just the uncertainty that exists out there. Sort of nobody has been through this before. It's truly a first for the world. We don't know where it's going, and that puts leaders, I think, in a challenging position because people want to hear from them. You want to hear from your CEO. You want to hear from your boss about, to give you some sense for like, when do we come out of this thing? What advice would you give to leaders as they grapple with this, dealing with the unknown, but I know I've got to say something?
Well, I talked to the CEO of Cargill this morning, Dave McMullen. He's come to a lot of our programs at Harvard, and he said, I want to be, I'm out there all the time, my employees. I'm delivering regular messages via video. I sit down, record one every Sunday night, send it out Monday morning, 2 minutes. But basically, I've got to be very blunt and tell people what's happening, but I've got to give them hope that we'll get through this. We're going to pull together at Cargill, the world's largest private company. We're going to get through this, but I've got to be blunt. I've got to be honest with it. I've got to define reality for them and tell them, here are the consequences. So for instance, in his business, everything now, the food service business, restaurants going down to zero, and yet the consumer business at grocery stores is booming, up 90%. So they got to make fast shifts in their factories and packaging and everything else. And he's got to make sure employees feel safe coming to work all around the world. He's got hundreds of factories. So these are the challenges. But I'm really proud of these CEOs. They're stepping up and following their sense, their true north, their purpose for their company, and making a difference and putting employees first, putting their customers first, and knowing in the end the shareholders, investors will come out better because they did it.
We had some great questions come in from our audience, the people who are watching this series, and I want to have you respond to a couple of those questions. And this is a good segue because you just sort of touched on it. What about leaders who are on the front lines, people who are working in healthcare industry. So we've got doctors who have been thrust into positions that they weren't before, or people who are working in the food service industry or other essential services. If you're leading an organization like that, how do you make your employees feel safe? How do you make them feel inspired to come to work every day, despite the tragic things that many of them are witnessing?
I got an email from one of my former students, Saqib Rahim, an MBA at Harvard Business School, who tells he is executive with Aetna. He's also a doctor. He's got an MD, MBA, and he went on the front lines. He's been in the COVID service at New York Presbyterian Hospital for 33 consecutive days in Queens. And he said, it's so sad. He sent out a picture. He said, the empty bed. He said, every day one of my patients dies, and I have to go in and tell them. Or the mother says, please, can you go in and tell my husband goodbye because I can't go see him. She's sitting out in the waiting, or she's sitting at home. She can't go see her own husband when he's dying. He just said, it's so sad. How do you tell someone? He said, patient asked me, could I die? Yeah, you could. So you try to give them hope, but it's the healthcare workers are the real heroes. People like Saqib, they're amazing heroes. We all want to honor military vets. Now we're going to really honor the healthcare heroes. But let's go beyond that. I think the frontline workers are the heroes. People working in warehouse, people working in delivery in an Amazon warehouse, or home delivery groceries. Everyone in New York is getting home delivery groceries. How does it get there? Somebody's got to risk their life to deliver it to people. The people are working in factories to try to produce life-saving products. You had to have that mask because they're willing to do that. So I think we're going to reevaluate the first line workers. I think, sadly, for the last 2 decades, Brian, we've devalued that. We put our money into middle managers and consultants. I see far fewer middle managers in the future. I think everyone will have a span of control of 15 to 20 people minimum. I think we'll lose far fewer consultants. It will depend on the first line workers, and we're going to pay them more. Doug McMillan at Walmart, he stepped up right away and paid $550 million more to his people. That was way back in early March. And Brian Cornell at Target did the same thing, $350 million to upgrade the compensation of his employees. And I think we'll see a lot more of this. And I'm really excited about that. I think we'll have thinner organizations, and the CEOs, even though they're in a stay in place, they've got to be on the front lines. One way, they got to be out there with their people, whether it's a Zoom call like this one, or whether it's a video, or whether it's actually physically going in there and seeing how people are doing in that hospital. They have to do it because people need to know their leaders are with them. So as a leader, you need to be out front, up front with your people. You can't sit back and let somebody else do it. You got to do it, and you got to take the risk. And it is a risk, but there's a lot of risks in this environment.
Yeah. We had a viewer ask an interesting question. Who's a leader that you look up to, and why?
Well, I've mentioned a few. There are a lot of leaders I look up to. Ken Frazier at Merck. I got him come on CNBC the other day, CEO Merck. And by the way, he's grandson of a slave. And Ken has done amazing things with Merck. And again, he has an antibiotic business. You don't think of this. He said, people don't die of coronavirus, they die of pneumonia. And they get pneumonia. And he said, he said, in my factory, this is a month ago, he said, or 4 weeks ago, my factory, he said, I've only got 300 out of 600 workers there because they got to have daycare. We got to figure this out. How do we get them help? And so he's stepping up, putting a lot of money into the antibody business. He said, we don't make any money in this business. We make money in expensive drugs. But he said, we got to do it. And so I admire someone like him. And I think I mentioned Corey Berry from Best Buy. She's doing everything to preserve her employees and totally transform the business so they can do totally online business and pick up at the store, pick up, and someone will load it in your trunk, or and you can get everything you want because there's been a huge surge right now in home PCs and laptops and printers and all kinds of, people want to have entertainment. They want to be connected. So I think people are having to make those transformations. So Corey's doing great, a new CEO, but doing a great job. And I think we're seeing a lot more people like that. Mary Barr at General Motors, the automobile business is going to be down now. It's probably going to be down for some time. She's making ventilators. They don't know the ventilator business, but she's stepping up to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like one of the themes that comes from all these examples you're giving is that CEOs are not thinking about the bottom line, and I think that's a really important thing because so often firms are looked at critically because they focus too much on the bottom line and they don't focus enough on customers and employees and others. But do you see a change that's sort of a turnabout that's happening here that could impact the way CEOs think about, not just today, but tomorrow and next year and beyond?
Yeah, I do. I think they'll realize that their business is dependent on their customers, and the CEOs are going. There's going to be a, we had before COVID-19 BC, and we have post or after COVID-19. Afterward, they're going to have to restructure the business models, and they're going to have to lead out. They're going to have to do what's right for their customers, and they're going to have to move quickly. And the employees are going to have to be very adaptable. Those companies, those leaders that are focused on customers and employees, are going to be the ones where the investors will really flourish. I mentioned J&J earlier. But there are many examples where companies have actually really worked carefully with customers and employees. They will flourish for investors. But I think it's really, if they have to do those things first, and you have to be very flexible. You haven't got a lot of time right now, so you've got to think through what's the business going to look like. It's going to be dramatic in how it's going to change. It's not going to come back the way we left it. People are going to eat at home more. They're going to do much more online shopping. They're not going to go to big mall stores. You're not going to have these malls. I don't think no one's going to build a new mall. And I think a lot of things will. I think transportation will change dramatically. I think more people will find other ways to get to work. A lot of people are walking around where I am. But I think you'll have to have a whole new business model. And every CEO I've talked to is thinking about that right now and having teams form to think through that new business model.
We had a viewer ask us, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, and we talked about sort of the thinning of the management ranks. Do you have advice for somebody who's not currently in a leadership role? Are there things that they could be doing during this crisis that would, help them, take advantage of the opportunities that might be there?
Yeah, step up and lead right now. You don't have to have a title. Forget the title. We want to see, if I'm a CEO, I'm going to look to see who are the informal leaders that everyone listens to, follows, who are the people that are willing to step up and make the changes and get things done in a hurry. Those are the people that post-COVID we're going to be honoring. So yeah, I say step up. You can lead. You don't have to wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder. Go get it done. Look for opportunities. Get on the front lines. Get out with people where the action is and make those changes now. Make it safe for people to come to your place of business, if people are working in your factories. Figure that out. Be the person that's figure out how the business model is going to change. I think those are the people that are going to really come out of this well. So everyone, I'd like to say to everyone on this call, you can lead right now, and please step up and do it, because we'll find out who the real leaders are in this crisis. And those are the ones that are going to come out after the crisis, and we'll be looking to them for greater responsibility. At least if I were in charge, we would.
I can't think of a better note to end on, Bill. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you very much for the time. And I just want to say, I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to make a difference. And we're recreating our sense of humanity and togetherness, even though we're separate. And I think that's one of the things going to come out of this, is reevaluating our own lives and put the emphasis on things that really matter. And that's the care of the people we care about and coming together in a sense of community. So thank you, Brian, for creating this community.
Thanks a lot.